that to you. Welcome into the Who Dat Confessional podcast today, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined by my good friend, my co-host, the man back from the dead. He wasn't dead. He was just living life. It's Elias J. Williams. We're going to talk about a couple things today, including, look, don't be offended. I saw you, St. Binky. You upset. No primetime games. But we're going to talk about the schedule, try to give you a level-headed perspective, but also not fill you with a bunch of smoke and mirrors out. We'll hit it with you straight. How you doing, Elias? Welcome in.
Elias is doing great. He's pretty solid today. Can't complain. It's a little bit warm in here, but I don't want to cut the air on because I don't want anybody to hear the vroom of my air conditioner. So
wait, you saying
I'm just
it
gonna
May
sweat. I'm gonna
in Louisiana?
I'm gonna
It gets
sweat for
warm?
everybody.
No,
Yeah.
no. I mowed the grass the other day. It was 90 degrees. I'm like, what? Is it August yet? No. Calm it down. Calm down. Is what it is.
We only mow the grass in the mornings or late evenings.
Yeah, I saw somebody on X complaining, like, why does everybody got to be mowing the grass at 6 in the morning? Clearly asked by somebody who has never mowed the grass.
Who's never
ever.
Those are the times. That's when you wake up. Now, I wouldn't say 6. I would like to be at least respectful of the other people in the neighborhood, before you start running your line
I'm
more.
Sure it was one of those, like, the trucks that come by on the trailer, and they unloading everybody, and they starting their routine. I ain't going to get mad at them. If that's the job where I take like a 10 to 2 lunch break, that's that job right there. Like, you're going to let me cool it down. But week one, and what we'll do here, because the most pointless thing you can do is predict a record in May. We're going to do that on today's show. We'll start with week one. Arizona Cardinals is how we're opening it up. And I said this to you before the stream. I still believe this way. I don't necessarily think the Saints are going to win all these games. But there's only one game on the entire schedule that I think is like, yeah, definitely I don't believe the Saints win this game. And again, I'm not trying to make everybody who listens to the show think the Saints are secretly going to be great. You have a quarterback battle. You're still figuring out the offensive line, new head coach. What I'm saying is what happens when you're a team that drafts in the top 10 and when you finish last in the division, what happens? Well, you face everybody else who finished last in the division who also have the same question marks you do. So as bad as of a situation you think New Orleans is in, don't worry, so is almost everybody else, because I know most people are going to look at week 2 and go, oh, crap, San Francisco, like as if they didn't just finish with 6 wins. So week 1, Arizona Cardinals at home. What are your immediate thoughts on this one?
I initially saw this as a L.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona was pretty so they didn't have the best record last year, but we talked about it. I'm looking at the defensive EPA.
It wasn't terrible, wasn't great, right? They had a very tough division too. Seattle's good, Rams are good. Tough division.
They were a playoff contender going into week 17, and so for that, I don't know how much regression I want to factor into that as far as them as a team, and then I honestly don't know how much to give us as far as a leap moving forward. I have that as a loss.
Hold on.
But
Numbers,
it's home.
though. Just something as you said. Leap for the Saints. Now, again, I'm not trying to make a podcast that spews positivity and gets everybody going crazy, but you talked about this number when we were talking beforehand. It's not hard to make a leap when your team was averaging 19 points a game. So, in terms of leap,
fair enough.
I mean, all we need them to do is start averaging 25, right? Remember when even in the prime Saints days when you and I were doing the show, we talked about wanting this team to score 28, right? So, you would hope new coaching staff that is offensively oriented is going to surpass 19 points a game. Now, will they have all their stuff together week 1? Wouldn't that be a wonderful New Orleans miracle? But, again, kind of what I said before, Arizona's a team, I don't really know if I trust them, right? They're in a tough division, but I still don't know if I trust them as a team in terms of how they are set up. And the same thing, New Orleans, a bunch of question. What you see on this schedule is a bunch of question marks. I think it's a winnable game, and I'll say that. I'm not saying they're going to win week 1, but I do like that for a team that has to find themselves, and that being New Orleans, of your first 8 games, 5 of them are at home. And that's a good thing for a team trying to grow with young players and find their identity. I like having those early home games.
I'm looking at the Cardinals depth chart right now, and you know, home game,
Mm-hmm.
first game of the season. You are looking at a defense that may likely want to play aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm looking at this offensive line for the Cardinals, and I don't think it's a good offensive line. And so,
It's
if
not
I
a
were
great
to,
offensive line, that's for sure.
yeah, I'm looking at the talent on the offensive line. I'm like, if there's an opportunity for the Saints to come out and
Mm-hmm.
establish the identity that Kellen Moore wants to establish, where the offensive line and the defensive lines are the
Mm-hmm.
straws that stir the drink.
Mm-hmm.
This is a game you can probably come out and win on both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage.
Should be pointed out, and again, we're talking about numbers from last year. One of the reasons I always say that trying to predict a game off last year is because it was last year. But this is also a defense in the Cardinals that were not better than the Saints defensively, especially in rushing the passer. Saints finished with 39 sacks, Cardinals finished with 41. Neither of those numbers are top of the league. Neither of those are, jump off the screen. And while there are names on that Cardinals depth chart coming into this year that you'll recognize, the thing is, a lot of the names you're going to recognize are aging veterans. And again, not trying to talk negatively, but like Calais Campbell. I love Calais Campbell. You love Calais. Who doesn't love Calais Campbell? The man's been playing since 1947, right?
Why you gonna go hard on that man age like that?
It's just how it is. Like, I love Calais Campbell. Hell, would have loved for his last year in the league. I thought it was going to be his last year in the league last year. But my main thing is, do I expect him to continue to perform at a high level? No. Even though he's a great player, he's 38 years old, turning 39 in 4 months. And he's currently listed as their starting outside guy. Josh Sweat, another veteran who's been around for a while, right? Dalvin Tomlinson. So when you look at who they have in their front seven, aging veterans who are probably on the second part of their career, again, I think for New Orleans, this is a winnable game because you're not going against a team that seems to be ascending. Again, I'm not trying to just hype up the Saints, but when you look at who Arizona is, the division they have, and more importantly, the roster that they're bringing, they don't come across as an ascending team, especially defensively, which is good if you're potentially running a rookie quarterback or a quarterback who's in his second year in the NFL.
So let's look at it this way. Let's agree on a win here.
Okay.
And I'm going to say we'll agree on a win here because you're right. They were significantly worse than us defensively last year. Maybe they take a leap forward defensively, but then offensively they were significantly ahead of us.
I do
but
like
there's
what they did in the
potential for us to
secondary.
make a
Like, I like Buda Baker, right? And they got Will Johnson. And obviously that one's you don't know because of the potential injury issues with Will. But secondary maybe is pretty good. I don't know if I really love what they've got up front. So I'm with you. I'll say win, but I really hate to, again, get too hype on all this. But it's just really tough for me to believe in a 39-year-old Calais Campbell as like your big defensive name,
I think it's fair to look at it from this aspect and say the Saints can take an offensive jump. And even if they just maintain where they were defensively without getting, better at all, you add that to it being a home game, and I think that this is a W.
For me, it's real key is the people who listen to this show and the people who go to the Dome. How much is that going to, or will it at all return to being a factor? You and I have gone to Saints games together. Right? We know the impact of the noise and that crowd in the Dome. If that's back, like if you went to any game last year or the year before, and again, we're not going to turn this into another Dennis Allen episode and Derek Carr episode. But what we are going to say is that you could tell that the Dome was not the same the past 2 years. Just there wasn't the level of excitement, especially when the losing skid really kicked in. My hope is that there is a renewed sense of what could this be? I'm not telling people to think that there's going to be a 12-win season and you're going to win the division, but I think there's finally reason for hope. And hopefully that translates to being a raucous crowd again at home, and that could really help your young guys find the footing that they need.
Deal.
So, next up, though, you've got San Francisco 49ers. And talk about teams that you don't expect last year to go 6 wins, but they did. And as a famous Cardinals coach once says, you are who your record says you are. So, winnable game, at least on paper. Though I do think a talented team.
This one I'm gonna definitely just take the L on.
I think
they were better than us defensively last year and far and away better than us offensively last year. I don't expect them to take they're gonna take a step back. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a step back.
I think they actually take a step forward because last year was such a step back. I mean, they had 3 straight years of like 12 wins, and then they just fell off of the face of the earth. It's because of the end of the last season. Do you remember, or I don't know how much you watched 49ers last year, but I think it was like their final 8 games, they lost 7 of them, right? And, they just got compounded by injuries, things like that. And
you get McCaffrey back healthy.
I'll look at this team, and if they're healthy and then knowing that Shanahan exists, I'll just go ahead and eat the L on it. But I still think it's a winnable game because the same team that lost 7 of their last 8 last year is coming back this year. Not saying I think it happens, but I would be willing to sit here and say, the Saints could win it, but taking that as an early L makes sense.
So 1-1 to start. Not bad start. Not bad start at all.
Then you get into Seattle. This is your first away game. That's a tough one. I actually don't really know how to read this one, to be honest with you. Like, Seattle to me has been almost an enigma. Like, you don't expect them to be as good as they've been the past 2 years, but they've still managed to be good, playoff caliber. But they also seem to just do like our Saints used to do, just lose silly games. Like games you expect them to win, they just don't win.
This is going to be an L for me. Seattle was right there with us last year as far as offensive EPA and defensive EPA. Mm-hmm. And yet we know that offensive coaching staff very well. And I think that had we not had the issues that we had injury-wise, we caught a very good glimpse of what the offense could have been when fully healthy. Mm-hmm. That coaching staff now goes to Seattle. They switch out and get Sam Darnold at quarterback. You can argue that they have some, multiple slot players. You lose a wide receiver over to Pittsburgh, more of a physical presence. And yet I like the way that scheme works for them, and they have a good running game. And I look at the depth chart, and the offensive line is good. We're playing them in Seattle. This is a loss for me.
Question, though, and again, don't want to get too hyped, but do you feel like they took a step back at quarterback, making this more of a winnable game for you? I mean, a lot of folks really bought into Geno Smith. Now, I know last year Geno Smith was not electrifying like 2022 because he made the Pro Bowl 2 straight years in Seattle.
Yeah.
Now he's with the Raiders, and you bring in Sam Darnold as the replacement. I would argue this is a very big potential step back game, even though you are right. They definitely have talent on their team. But also, they brought in Cooper Kupp. I think there's a reason the Rams are willing to let Kupp go, right? They brought in Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who New Orleans helped revive his career. Shout out to him. Not trying to be a hater. But I think their most dangerous offensive weapon now is probably Walker, running back. I don't know. I feel like I just have never been a big believer in Sam Darnold to begin with. And Geno Smith now leaving, I wonder if this is the team in that division that takes the big step back and making this, again, a winnable game. Not saying New Orleans is going to win, and I'll actually still be fine if we write this as a loss. But I don't think this is the Seahawks of the past 3 years.
Ironically, listen, last year Geno Smith scored 21 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. The most he's ever thrown in a year, 30 touchdowns. That offense is going to be more explosive this year. Just out of Darnold being able to get the ball where Smith couldn't, but also the scheme. If you just to compare their careers, just looking at it, Sam Darnold has thrown 98 touchdowns over his career, and it's not been a lengthy career.
Yeah, 1/3 of that came last year, though.
Fair enough. And yet, Geno Smith, despite his lengthy career, has only thrown 7 more touchdowns than Sam Darnold. Darnold is going to make that offense a
Well,
little bit more explosive.
hold on. I want to flip the script on you. I get what you're saying, but Geno Smith's also only been a starter 5 years of his career. That's it. Sam Darnold's been a starter every year of his career.
6.
Well, he was a starter for the years he was also injured, but
2022 Panthers, that was an abbreviated year. So was the 49ers. Abbreviated year. He played 2 years with the Panthers. I just think that Sam has a little bit more. Geno Smith was a what? Second round pick. Sam Darnold was a first round pick for a reason. Got a little more talent there. And again, that scheme, we're familiar with that scheme and that offensive staff. I think that's the right fit for Seattle. And I also think that they have the horses in the running game to keep that offense on schedule, because we know that they like to run the ball on that staff. And so as long as they can stay ahead of schedule, Darnold will make plays as long as too much is not put on him. And this staff dealt with having 2 rookies, and never outside of the second half stuff, you never actually felt like the quarterback had to carry the entire team. And I think they'll do a good job with not putting Darnold in that position. And again, it's a away game.
That's
potential win. Potential win.
Yeah.
But I see it as a loss.
And I am still a big Clint Kubiak guy. It's tough for me on Darnold because Darnold went multiple teams, nothing. Minnesota blows up. And then Minnesota's like, nah, we don't need you back. So that's a tough one. But you are right. Like, I've always believed that Clint can be a decent guy. And it's another interesting situation where this isn't like an offensive coordinator who's just in name only. This is one of the rare defensive head coaches in Seattle that the offensive coordinator is really actually going to be running the show offensively. So you could be right. All right, that's 1 and 2. Chalk it up. Next up on the list, though.
Winnable? That one game.
Winnable? Not at all. This is the one I have as the instant L. Like, I don't even feel like we need to discuss it. Call me a hater, Saints fans. You're going to Buffalo against, to me, a team that, if it wasn't for the Kansas City Chiefs existing, probably has 3 Super Bowl titles. But because the Kansas City Chiefs exist, they probably won't win a Super Bowl. It sucks to be a Bills fan. You're literally always second best. But yeah.
Competitive loss. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think it'll be a competitive loss, but definitely
good news.
An L.
We're coming here in 1 and 3, but then we come back home. 2 home games I think are both incredibly winnable. New York.
I have W's.
This is my birthday game too. So like, if I could go to a game this year, this is like it's the day before my birthday. I'd love to go to this one. New York Giants at home, and again, they are a team in complete rebuild. And as much trash and guff we give Mickey Loomis, y'all got to remember there's worse situations out there, because this is the team that drafted Saquon top 5 and then paid Daniel Jones $40 million a year before Derek Carr was even thought of getting $40 million a year, and then dumped both of them and completely just had to nuke their team. Like, the New York doesn't know how to create a football team Giants. This is a W for me. Like, I really believe at home we can win this game. I don't really trust anything New York is doing right now. They're starting completely from scratch. I think you can win this. We can go, hey, who's on the roster, stuff like that. But, man, I look at New York and I just do not have any level of confidence in them yet. Do I like some of the moves they're making? Sure. And you saw a lot of folks giving them a lot of praise for things that they did in like the draft and everything. But I'm sitting here going, we'll see. Yeah, I'm not super.
This is not a can. This is more of a should win.
Should definitely.
For me. This is a should win. It'll be fun to see Paulson Adebo out there since he went to them. They did pick up Russell. They have Jameis out there. Potentially one of those guys, as far as Jameis potentially could end up on the roster if some things shake forward, depending on how the quarterback competition goes. But yeah, this is a game they should win. That, and along with the game following that versus the Patriots.
Man, I do. Now, I will say this. I just talked trash about him. I like that they drafted Jackson Dart and they've got him behind Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, 2 great veterans. By the way, I really hope Russell Wilson loses the QB battle to Jameis Winston. But regardless, Love the long-term look out there for what Dart could by what he gets to sit behind. But here are the weapons. Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton. Again, getting later in their career. Tyrone Tracy Jr. is your running back. Theo Johnson's your tight end. And they've got to kind of like build it together offensive line. I think the Saints can win this one. 2-3.
Yeah, I don't see them having enough of a running game to take all of the pressure off of Russell.
Yeah.
And we know how Russell plays when, he has to be the guy to carry. He's just kind of beyond that in his career right now. So yeah, that's a W for me.
They got some good defensive names, and I will say this: Paulson Debo for years has been one of the best number 2s in the league. Can he jump up and be a true number 1? Guess we'll see in New York. But next up, New England Patriots. It's not Bill Belichick. It's not Tom Brady. Those days are long gone. What you got on this one? What do you think when you look at this team?
That's a W. I mean, that's a team coming again. EPA last year, the Saints were a middle of the road team. They were one of the top middle of the road teams, right up there with Seattle, and that was during a time when we didn't have Carr. And so you can say, okay, well, if we didn't have Carr and they were that good, EPA defensively and offensively, then they should be able to make a jump into the second year. Even if Rattler just improves a bit, the coaching staff probably gets a little bit more out. This team was better than the 9th pick. The injuries hurt, but we weren't as bad as 9 either. There were some teams that were far worse. I thought we lucked out being able to pick inside of the top 10. New England was one of those terrible teams. I don't see them make a huge significant jump. They travel to us. That's a W.
Yeah, and just to give relevance and like a little bit of context, New England has, again, this is projected because we're talking about this in May. So this is all to a degree pointless. But they have 11 new starters between offense and defense this year. Generally, teams that have that level of turnover are not good teams. That's just a historical fact. Now, they could change it up. But again, Drake May is their quarterback. We'll see what they look like. You got to play the season. But 11 new starters is rough. But that said, you have a similar issue next game, which is an away game. You get to see Dennis Allen again with Chicago. How do you see that one?
I like it. So I have it as a W. I think they should be able to beat them.
Okay.
But man, I had to give what Chicago did this year as far as building that staff. I thought getting Dennis Allen was an excellent get. Terrible head coach, excellent defensive coordinator. He'll get if he can't do anything, he can put together a defense, and he'll be able to build that defense up and get them playing well. There will be some emotion from his side, I'm sure. So he'll come to.
Well, that's a full-on New Orleans Saints coaching staff. So I mean, because it's Ben Johnson, right, and then Declan Doyle.
Oh, Ben Johnson is there.
Yeah, that's their head coach, right? So, and then Declan Doyle sat in our system under Peyton and everybody else for like a decade, right? So I mean, you're really staring at a New Orleans Saints created coaching staff. It's. And I've always said I believe Dennis Allen's going to make a great defense. And I think they've already got a solid set of defensive players over there. So I actually think this is a loss. And I don't think Saints fans would like to hear that, but I think we lose to the Bears. Because I believe, keep in mind that this is taking place, this is going to be week 7. I believe by week 7, DA is going to have his defense dialed up to what those players he has, the best that they can play, he's going to have them. I think we lose this game. I think their defense is going to take a step up for them. I don't know if the defense for Chicago is going to be good enough to take them to playoffs or anything, but I think their defense is going to be a better defense.
I'm looking at the talent there. It's just like he's got Jaquan Brisker, and that was someone he pretty much had a phone call until he was going to draft, except that the Bears drafted him 1 pick ahead of us. So he gets to work with Jaquan Brisker. They've got Kevin Barrett there. He's a little bit over the hill as far as a defensive back. However, I'm curious about that secondary and can they play the way he wants to play as far as man coverage.
I'm also very curious, how does he use Tremaine Edmonds as well? Because even though I think that DA's done great with secondary, doesn't feel like linebackers, especially stand-up linebackers, have always been his best. He lucked out on having DeMario Davis, right?
He did.
So curious on that one. But I still think, though, that knowing DA, those safeties, those corners, I'm going to write that down as a good
You know,
unit.
Coach, we'll split that one. I have that one as a W.
All
I
right.
think they can beat the Bears, but it'll be close. It's out there. It's in Chicago, and the Bears were actually they were again a median team last year. They
Mhm.
were further behind us as far as EPA, both defensively and offensively, especially offensively. But can they make the jump? I think they have the staff in place to make the offensive and defensive jump that they need. Plus, they
Mhm.
had access to premium talent in the draft.
Yep.
And they had a pretty good free agency. You're right. You're probably right on the loss there. I'm saying W just because maybe I want to have a W, but I
Which
think
is
you're
fine.
right. That potentially could be a loss there.
Like I said, and a big part of it is I really believe in Ben Johnson. Like I
Yeah.
really believe
Yeah.
in what they're trying to put together. Right. And again, this is a team that a coaching staff that's basically Saints made, and we know how well that works. So next up, we got the reigning division champs, and I'm just going to be honest, Saints fans, hate me all you want. I'm not picking against a team that's made the playoffs 5 times in a row and actually has a quarterback they believe in and just came off a season where they scored 500 points. So I think Baker Mayfield and the Bucks, until proven otherwise, are the best team in this division. I think that's an instant L, but I do think it's winnable. Why? Because even with DA, and even with Pete Carmichael, we still play this team very well. So I still think it's a winnable game. I'm just not going to pick against them until we start beating them. But I think it's a winnable game.
What's the record versus Tampa Bay the last couple of years? Haven't we
Uh,
split?
we
So
have
far?
generally split, yeah. And now a big part of us splitting, though, has been that our defense has been elite, right? We were losing games like the Mark Ingram 2-yard game, right? We had great defensive performances, but we couldn't score more than like 17 points. And I just don't know if I trust this defense right now because it's aging veterans and you lost your key defensive piece there. So I'm giving the nod to Tampa, which has an absolute slew of studs on offense. Can't guarantee that's going to stay that way, but they were the number 4 point scoring team last year. I'm leaning to Tampa, but I would love to beat them. And I think we can beat them.
I think we can beat them. I think that first game they took advantage of the fact that we had Rattler starting. Second game, Rattler looked much improved. I mean, that was probably the thing that gave me a little bit hype for
Mhm.
Rattler because that was the game I saw such significant improvement from him versus the first game. First game they just blitzed him heavy and he couldn't
Yeah.
handle it. The second game he looked a lot better versus the blitz. The problem was at second half Woes just killed the entire team all year offensively. We could not figure out like making second half adjustment. Again, when I'm looking at this staff, I in totality, I think this is a staff that may be able to squeeze more out of this team
Mhm.
than last year. Um,
Well, you'd need to, but again, I said the defense is going to be a
and it's a home
question.
game.
This is also a team that last year Tampa put up 50 on us against that defense I'm talking about being, good. So we'll see. I think it's an L,
You got L
but
there? Okay. I can roll with that.
yeah, just to answer your question though, in the past 8 games, they've won 5, we've won 3.
Three.
So,
So almost split.
and we're on a
Um,
downturn. So,
yeah, I'm okay with that being a loss. I'm
all
not gonna
right.
fight you on that one.
2 straight away games. We got the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm just gonna be honest. I don't believe we can beat the Rams right now until we can prove that we can beat the Rams. And then Carolina, this leading us into the bye week. So we can hit these 2, then we got the bye week. Look, I think the Rams are the Rams. I again do believe that every year teams take step back. I think the Rams could be that team this year, but that's still a good team. And they added Devontae Adams. I get it, end of his career. But Puka Nakua, I don't think anybody on the Saints defense can cover him right now out of the slot. So that's a problem for me. And I still think they have a solid defense. So I think that that's an L right now. And a lot of this is built around, can the Saints offense be better? And when I mean be better, I mean actually better, as in not 19 points a game going to 21 points a game. By this point in the season, because at this point you're at the halfway mark, are they scoring 25-24 consistently. And if that's the case, then I think this is a very winnable game because the Matthew Stafford-led Rams, this might be a shock to many people, the most points they've scored with Stafford there is 460, but that was the year they won the Super Bowl. They actually only scored 367 points last year. Even though they finished first in the division, they gave up more points than they scored. So a team that's offense has started to waver a bit over the past few years since they won the Super Bowl. Their defense has played stout. I mean, it's been solid, not great. But this is an offense that isn't scoring the points that it used to score. So keep that in mind as well.
I'm still gonna go with a loss here, only because that front seven, as well as the offensive line, is still intact.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my theme for making these judgments is going to be: can we win the line of scrimmage on either side of the last couple of teams? They have offensive line, defensive line strength. And so that'll be big for us. I'm looking at the Rams. That front seven, as far as the offensive line, probably be a loss as well.
Likely.
But Carolina,
I think, is much more winnable. No, Carolina is definitely a game that we can win, right? I mean, they're in a very similar position that we're in, right? But I would argue I'm very biased here. I wonder why. But I like what the Saints have done coaching staff-wise a lot more than what Carolina's done. I'm not a big believer in Dave Canales. I'm not a big believer in Brad Idzik. I'm just not. I'm not. Obviously, I'm biased because we're doing Saints over here. But I'm not a big believer in Bryce Young either. I'm just not.
I think we can dominate them on the line of scrimmage. When I look at their front, I think our offensive line can dominate, but their offensive line is not. They've added a lot of weapons. They added Tet. They have Xavier from last year. They still have Adam Thielen. Bryce did show improvement. Not much still behind Chuba Hubbard. If you start to put this on Bryce Young and ask him to kind of win the game, I think that puts you in a better position, and I think they can. So I'm going to tentatively call this a W going into the bye.
Yeah, I think the Saints can win this game. And again, for those keeping up, we now into the bye week have you at 4-6. For a team that's rebuilding, I'd take this all day long. Through 10 games, winning 4 of them on a team that I need to show something and rebuild, I'm okay with that.
It puts them only one game away from last year's win total. With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games left to go. I think that's fair. And again, some of these games may be completely opposite of what we're thinking. But to the point where they are now, I think that's not a bad position for a new coaching staff and a team that is probably going to have a rookie quarterback starting at some point. I hate to say it, random thought, but I could totally see Rattler maybe starting the season and then getting yanked at some point, similar to what happened to him in college. Mostly because Rattler's decision making has always been questionable. That's the reason he got yanked for Caleb Williams in college when he was at Oklahoma, is that his decision making under pressure ended up putting the team behind the schedule a lot. And then he's also smaller. Right. And so you start Caleb Williams over him, a little bit more athletic potential, better decision making under pressure. Hopefully Rattler makes a jump. But yeah, at some point I could absolutely see Shuck starting. And then, then you're looking at, hey, it's a young quarterback learning on the go. Some of these games are going to be more difficult than they probably should be.